afraid people I know. Don't be afraid to raise your voice at me, sir.
I want to thank you for having me, Jerry.
I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank all the people who train, who fight, who put on entertainment for us. CTE is not a joke. It really isn't a joke.
Do you know what CTE stands for?
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
There we go.
I learned it from him. I learned it from listening to you.
What was that Will Smith movie? I have found a disease. Concussion. I have seen something nobody else has seen before.
Does he have an accent in that movie?
He does. He plays maybe Nigerian or some sort of African doctor who was the first person to discover chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
A little background on CTE. What do you think about that? What do you think it means for the fighters? What do you think is insurance enough to prevent, to help against something?
The
like
one
that?
argument in our fight versus boxing is that the standing 8 count is terrible. A lot of times guys will get multiple concussions, and it's that secondary concussion that can be the one that turns the lights out forever. We have leg kicks, knee bars, arm bars, guillotine chokes, go-go platas, platas. Someone just pulled off the first Ezekiel choke, no gi, from the bottom, mounted in heavyweight division last week. It was wild.
Yeah, bro.
The amount of times that we see someone land an H-bomb like he did on Bisbing, it doesn't happen a ton. But in boxing, you have two things. You either hit the body or you hit the face with hands. And you do it repetitively.
With guys who are trained to strike with nothing but their hands, which
you have a guy like Damian Maia. I think he's absorbed 8 significant strikes in his last 7 fights. It's crazy. Guy's just a jiu-jitsu virtuoso is the only word that even comes to mind.
Did you say their knees are going to be more fucked up than their head ever gets in cases like that?
Joints, definitely. Anything grappling heavy, joints are going to be terrible. Boxers have a lot of problems with shoulder impingements. I mean, that constant repetitive turning over. Mm-hmm. It's an unnatural thing for the body to do.
So what does it mean for fighters now with these concussions? I know here in Florida, if you're aware, they just turned over the 3-fight rule for ground and pound. All of us are ground and pound from our very first fight, and the reason that argument was brought up was because of that secondary concussion that Ray just talked about. Guys are standing back up because they can't ground and pound, so they can generate more power, and the guy gets knocked out and falls and hits his head. And actually, who was it? It was just on a podcast talking about a guy that died. I think it was on Rogan, talking about a guy that died specifically due to the secondary concussion.
Was that Gary Taubes, the scientific journalist, talking about low-carb diets?
Yeah,
Gary Taubes. Excellent podcast, too. If you guys get a chance, check out JRE. If you're looking to know more about a low-carb diet, Gary Taubes was more than informative. And he had Rhonda Patrick on this week, too, who is just beyond informed.
Just on that podcast.
Every now and again, I feel like I know something about something, and then they talk for 3 hours, and I wind up giving that information to other people, thinking that it makes me smart, but really I'm just listening to them.
You think you know about sprouting. You don't know about sprouting until you listen to Dr. Rhonda Patrick. That shit's on the way. So what's... okay, let's just... you want to expound on the issue of concussions or anything? Something to add, or...
You know what's funny? I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. It's a boxing-heavy city. My dad boxed in the Big Garden.
Yeah, and I want to preface this by saying that the man speaking actually has a background in...
I like to box. I like to roll. It's just something that it's a hobby that I've had.
But you're also a certified nurse.
I'm a nurse. I graduated nursing school about 3 years ago. Yeah. I have a moderate background in science, but you have people who are neurologists. You have people who are nurse practitioners in neurology. Listen to them. Listen to Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Watch Will Smith in concussion because he found a disease. What I do want to say is that MMA. A lot of times we wear headgear. We wear 16-ounce gloves. We work in a static position. Like if someone's traditionally tie walking somebody down, we're not running at 19 miles an hour over an open field with a helmet on, launching our bodies at other people.
God no.
If anybody ever watches the X Games, those guys who do motocross on the big jumps, bones don't break, they shatter. I saw a movie with Hugh Jackman last year, Eddie the Eagle, about the ski jumpers.
Yeah.
200, 300 feet through the air, just tearing bones off the body.
You're fucked.
I can only generate so much from here to there.
It's gonna hurt like hell. You go to sleep.
Yeah, but I mean, you're working from a static position. We're not sprinting. We don't have on track shoes. We're not padded. The hands themselves aren't really designed all that well, so you have to keep your hand tight when you throw a fist. And there's an inherent danger, but there's an inherent danger in anything we do. There's an inherent danger in eating massive amounts of sugar and developing type 2 diabetes. There's a massive amount of danger in having a couple of drinks at the club this weekend and then driving home. You just driving on I-95. You got some kid that's texting. They take you. you can't nerf the world. You know,
like
life without a little bit of like risk and danger and fun. I don't know who I'm quoting right now, but they said it's impossible to live life without failure unless you've lived life so carefully, in which case you failed by default. So I've enjoyed some of the crazier things I've done. I was a kind of a rambunctious youth, got in a little bit of trouble here and there. Kind of made me the man who I am today. But as far as the concussions and everything like that, I've trained at enough gyms to know that when you get a angry young man who comes into a boxing gym or an MMA gym, contrary to what people would think, they usually leave a much less angry young man. It's a place where you can learn a little bit of self-discipline. You got to check that ego at the door because you're going to get choked out by 146-pound Brazilian cats named, Vojma Silva choke you and put you into the unconscious. It's okay, my friend. No, it's okay. You take care and you break the arm. It's okay. No, because he is the little... No. These guys, I've learned so much from Washington Nunes de Silva, Onishi Rodrigo, who's one of Hion's black belts. He was my jiu-jitsu coach a couple of years back, probably my closest friend in the world of jiu-jitsu. He's in Abu Dhabi right now teaching, so if anyone here is in Abu Dhabi, check out Onishi Rodrigo. So as far as concussions goes, if you want to do something, we only have so many trips around the sun. That's how many years we have on Earth. I'd much rather regret the things I've done than the things I haven't, but that doesn't mean to be reckless. Train smart. You look at Cowboy, you look at Tim Kennedy, there's a lot of guys, they kind of figured out a better way to train. You don't need to have that pedal to the metal sparring, but, when you're new, you got to know what happens if someone flashes a jab in your face. If your initial thing is to pull back and cover up, you're going to wind up getting hurt more. So once you develop that fight IQ to know what happens when you get touched, that's why you have guys who know how to hold mitts and move around, and you do sparring for effect, not sparring to spar. I don't fight in parking lots. I don't even really train anymore. I'm getting a hip replacement pretty soon. But I love to watch the fights because the evolution that the game has taken. It used to be a brown belt in jiu-jitsu versus a Golden Gloves boxer. Go. And now we have guys, I do miss Rory McDonald. The only two guys that we still have like that, I would kind of like to see a Damian Maia, Stephen Thompson fight, just straight karate versus straight jiu-jitsu. And then you have Nick Diaz, who's a boxer, but also has jiu-jitsu that is just so underrated. It's crazy. Uriah Faber, we just recently said goodbye to him. Thank you for a dozen years of memories. Probably the only reason there's a 135-pound weight class in the UFC is because Uriah Faber made it cool to be 135 pounds and fight.
Exactly.
So yeah, I love the sport. Train smart. Listen to your body. If you're seeing halos and your head's feeling a little bit light,
maybe work the jiu-jitsu a little more.
Yeah.
Maybe go see a doctor. Maybe get an MRI. So Ray, something I started doing was wearing headgear. Do I look silly with it on? Yes, I do. But I'm extremely prone to cuts. And I was tired of getting cut and getting scarred up. So, now sometimes the helmet might actually make you a little used to getting punched, but that doesn't mean I need to work, don't need to work defense or anything. But if it means I'm getting injured less and getting, fewer concussions, those little, dings, so be it. I'd rather look silly than have some of that stuff that comes as a result of concussions go. But that was very well broken down, sir.
Thank you, brother.
That was very well broken down.
Last thing, MMA doesn't seem to have nearly as many non-contact injuries as other sports. Do you know what non-contact injuries are?
Like rolling ankles and shit like that?
Torn ACLs. When you see a slot receiver run a skinny post or a dig or something like that and all of a sudden cut and collapse. When you see a non-contact injury, usually that means that you're going to have massive surgery. You're going to be on the shelf for a while.
How much of that happens in basketball?
Quite a bit. The basketball shoes have a lot of traction. That wooden floor doesn't make for a lot of give. That's when I see guys doing bag work all the time on a rubber mat floor with sneakers on. If you can't pivot that front foot open to land kicks, I'm like, you're gonna torque your knee. You're gonna torque your hip. So train smart. Listen to your coaches. Join a gym that has a good reputation.
If it hurts, don't do it.
Yeah. Can we get right into the main event?